Moon ray cast a spell upon my pillow. Doo dee 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 dee.
Wanna fool around what you say? A simple little phrase can only go to my head.
Hey Laura, how you doing?
Yeah, how are you today?
I'm very well. Yeah, great.
If I say to you about like the music that inspired you, is there a song that comes to mind for you immediately?
No, there's absolutely not one song at all.
Mhm.
It's a huge amount of songs. And for sometimes the tiniest reason, I will get obsessed about that one song. It might be a lyric, it might be one line, it might be the guitar break in it or the intro, and it's all in there. I can't actually say there's one song. That's like asking me if there's one person that I love. It's the same as that for me. I used to sit with my ear at the record player, and I would pick up on various things that I loved. So I listened to a lot of female singers and male, but I remember trying to copy, I'd copy Aretha Franklin, and I'd learn how she'd go, do do, and you go, oh, what an intro, and then you try and copy that with your voice, and then you'd listen to Ella Fitzgerald, and then she did totally different way. And moon ray cast a spell upon my pillow. Do dee 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 dee. Do 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 do. So all these different ways, and you'd hear Janis Joplin just go, and then you think, right, I need to do all those things with my voices, and I want to know them now. And I would listen to them over and over and over again to try and figure out how they did that. And I would replicate it. And I mean obsessively over and over again until I'd get it. And then I'd turn it into my own. I wanted to understand what they did and how they did it. And then I'd do my own version of that. You reminded me of something that I totally forgot about. So when I was about 14 or 13, I got a present of, it was a Fisher Price. Hang on, stay there. That says record, and that changed my life. This Fisher Price toy changed my life because it had a record button. And so I spent so much time recording. And so what I used to do is I'd put a blank tape in, and I'd listen to the radio or whatever. I'd sing along with it, and I'd record myself, and then I'd listen back. And then I used to play that tape and then put another blank one in and record a third part harmony. And I didn't even realize that that's double tracking. I was doing that at 13 or 14 years old. I'd figured out how to do this. I didn't realize what I was doing. I just figured if I record that and then I played that tape, then I can do a third harmony on it. And I remember there was a song, and it was Sam Brown. Stop before you go and break my heart. Ooh, you better stop. And she was amazing on that. And I recorded myself singing harmony to that. And I gave a lend of this to my friend. And the tape was in it, and I didn't know. And I remember when I went up to their house, the family all said, "Oh my God, you're an amazing singer." And I nearly got sick with the thoughts that anybody had heard this. I really felt like throwing up. I can feel it in my stomach now that somebody, because nobody had heard this. I didn't let anyone know I was doing this. And at that age, you're so precious about these things, aren't you? You're so terrified and embarrassed by everything. And I nearly died when our dad said, we all listened to it in the kitchen. We all loved it. And that was the first recording that I ever did. I remember the first time that I heard, hang on, if I can find it in here, this album.
Yes.
Claire Torrey's vocals. That was a moment for me as well as a kid. When I heard her backing vocals, she screeched. She really goes for it. And that was the first time I'd heard anybody, I'd like to say lose it, but that's not what she's doing. She's really controlling it. She knows what she's doing, and she's letting herself go. Her instincts have just taken over. She's gone. It's like sometimes when I'm singing, I feel like I'm levitating. I've lifted off the floor. My feet aren't on the floor anymore, and I'm somewhere higher than my own body. And they're the magic moments. I don't know if you've seen the movie Soul, but it really describes it very well in that movie. You go to another place and you don't notice time at all or your surroundings, and it's magical. And that's where your instincts kick in and your heart and soul go into it. And when I sing and I go to those moments, they're the magic moments. And she's in her moment there, and she is just going for it, and it's instinctive singing, and it's almost feral, it's wild, and it is so beautiful and fantastic what she does in that song. And she reaches a climax with it. It's orgasmic, and then she brings back down beautifully. And I often think gigs are quite like, they're like making love. They're like a one-night stand. You meet somebody, you get to know them a little bit, they get to know you a little bit, and then you laugh together, then you get a little connection, a relationship, and at some point in the evening you definitely reach this fabulous climax together, and then you all say goodnight and go home your separate ways. And that's a gig, and she does that with her vocal in one song.
Sometimes it seems that life's unfair, the journey leads nowhere, its roads are miles apart. I followed the path within my heart.
Going to see Eartha Kitt in a tiny little club in London, and she had a dress slid up to way past the top of her thigh. And then I met her later, and she grabbed me and we put our legs out. She stuck her leg out and told me, come on. And I stuck my leg out as well. And she just said to me, whose are better, yours or mine? I bowed off. I was like, yours, definitely yours. But her gig was so amazing. And she was in her 80s at that point. And I remember how much control she had over the whole gig and her audience. I remember that when I was working with Wanda Jackson as well, I was in awe of how much control she had with her band and her audience. That she knew exactly what she was doing, and she did it really well. So I suppose women like that have always influenced me, because I suppose it takes you have to know yourself well in order to do that and be like that, especially as a woman in a man's world, where I've had so much, people presume you have, where's your musical director, or who actually writes your songs, or at the end of the night, right, so who do I pay? And you go, me. you know, it's my band. You pay me. I booked the gig, you know, before I had management or anything. So when you meet these women who went before you and they were doing it decades before, you really get a huge respect for them for what they have gone through, to then as an older woman, I mean in their 80s, still doing it and still being amazing and still having audiences, you know, eating out of their hand. You just think, God, these are powerhouses that paved the way for the rest of us. And I love them more for, again, Tina Turner comes into that, Aretha Franklin comes into that. These were very special people. And on a massive level, every U2 gig I've ever gone to is like a spiritual experience. They really take you to another place. I highly recommend going to see them. If you haven't seen them, it's more than just a gig. I remember during their gig, they had this beautiful moment where you're looking at this big screen, and it was definitely a moment for me where, and everybody there, I think, where they had this woman in the huge refugee camp that was in Jordan, and she's speaking about her life, and she was this young woman, and she's speaking about, all I want to do is be education, and it zoomed in on her face and her eyes, and she was just speaking, a real woman, not an actress, I mean an actual woman living this. And then all of a sudden the visual went different, and her eyes, it turned into this image, and it changed, and it seemed to be moving. And then all of a sudden it made sense that it was, we looked over and this light came, and this giant flag with her face printed on it came out and rolled out across the audience. And they said, carry her. And everybody moved her gently around the whole auditorium. And I just was in bits. Hold her, we'll hold each other up, carry each other, carry her. And it just killed me. Even now, thinking about it, that was a moment, and I thought was very, very powerful and very beautiful, and made everybody think, you know, really think. So I thought that was a great moment. And I'm not saying that, you know, everybody should be like U2 at all, but I do think it's such a lovely thing to do, to connect with everybody, more than just entertain. Definitely entertain, but also, especially I think now more than ever, we realize how important it is to connect. You know, now that we can't, that it's a moment where, you know, that moment at a gig or a festival that you just want to throw your arms around the person beside you and dance and hug them, and that's a massive moment. You know, that's a big moment, and you know, it's really important. Those moments are really, really important, because we need each other, you know.